Captain America has the best hands in the MCU. It's a statement you'll hear from fans of the character all the time. And really, they are not wrong for thinking that. A peek into Captain America the Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War alone is enough to prove that point. But good fight scenes and great action in general aren't limited to Captain America films. In fact, across the years, the MCU has delivered plenty of high-quality battles, moments that are still praised, still rewatched and talked about today. What's strange though, is that even with all of this, whenever the conversation about the best fight scenes in the MCU comes up, the general consensus somehow always circles back to the same place, the Captain America films. So in today's video, I want to tackle that thesis. Why is it that even with Marvel giving us so many incredible fights, Captain America movies are the ones that feel like they stand above the rest? We are going to look at the philosophy behind them and how the directors, the actors and the entire production team committed themselves to making that level of action possible. And hey, if you like videos like this and want to see more, or you simply want to help the channel grow, you can support that by dropping a like or subscribing. Trust me, it helps a lot. Alright, now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's hop into it. Captain America the First Avenger is a pretty great film. One could say it's pretty much enjoyable, but long-time Captain America fans and casual audiences had a gripe with this movie. It had very little showcase of Captain America's skills. There's not much he really does to truly display his powers. His fights are good, but not in the sense breathtaking. Most of the time, when we are supposed to see him with his abilities in full display, he's mostly using guns, throwing his shield, or using his bike with missiles in them. At a certain point, he stopped feeling like a super soldier, more like a soldier with pretty cool toys. Even when he's fighting Red Skull, a conversation that the whole movie was building towards, it felt kind of underwhelming. Less of a fight between two super soldiers and more of a dogfight between two very strong men.
Boring!
Now, I'm not saying the action in the First Avenger was bad or that there weren't any showcase of Cap's strength, but I'm trying to highlight its lack of impact. The fights are pretty stale and mostly generic. He kicks and he punches and that's it. I mean, I can kick and punch too, so it's nothing special.
You're lying!
And you know what? It somehow worked. This was a Captain America who was just starting out. He was technically still new to his powers, so nothing should have been expected from him more than that. What would have been the issue would have been if this continued throughout his entire stay in the MCU, just kicking and punching hard enough. So after the First Avenger, Marvel decided to choose new directors for Captain America moving forward, to create a tonal shift from Joe Johnston's take on the character to a more modern style. And for what it's worth, that was the best decision Marvel ever made. Because these two men, the Russo brothers, Anthony and Jay Russo, wait, that's not right. Oh, Anthony and Joe Russo, my bad, I'm sorry. Although at first people weren't happy about this decision being made, I mean, who can blame them? In their point of view, Marvel was putting the entire fate of an iconic character into the hands of two dudes who directed TV comedy shows and sitcoms. But even with that, the Russo brothers managed to prove us all wrong. The Russo brothers completely reconfigured the character of Captain America. But what makes it impressive is that they never abandoned the foundation laid in Captain America the First Avenger. The core stayed intact. What changed, however, was how it functioned in the modern world. Instead of playing him as some confused relic of the past, they treated him like a soldier who understood exactly where he stood in time, a man aware that the world had moved on, but determined to move with it rather than stand behind it. And that decision is important because by doing that, they toughened him up. They allowed him to actively use everything he had, his training, his will, his physical gift, to operate at the highest level in this era, not the one he came from. His morality, in a sense, doesn't disappear, it just gets sharper, placed in this grey, politically messy world, and of course where aliens also exist. Those simple old school principles suddenly felt less like naivety and more like strength. They became the thing that separated him from everyone else. And once the character is viewed that way, making him more capable in combat isn't just fan service anymore, it's logical. They even gave it an inward explanation that after the events of the Avengers, he spent the next 2 years training himself in modern fighting styles. In a sense, it's the natural result of a man who has accepted his reality and decided he will be the best soldier the present day can produce. And honestly, that works. I think another reason the Russo brothers did such a fine job with the character is because just like you and me, these guys are comic book fans as well. They love these characters and had their childhood experiences with them, which is very important when you are required to make a movie about one. With this mindset, they take the character of Captain America, analyze him to his basics, and know how to handle him. Using this 70s style of filmmaking they were strongly inspired by.
70s style filmmaking was a huge influence on the film, and it's not dialogue that's turning it, it's action that's turning it.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Many things makes a fight scene good. Pacing, camera angles, and all of the stuff. But a good location for a fight can take a fight scene from being good to becoming great. And the action scenes in the Captain America films as a whole nailed these fundamentals well. There's a reason why the elevator scene is still held up today as one of the best fight sequences ever put to screen in a superhero film. It forces the main character into a situation we haven't seen him in before. It's something you'd expect to see in a casual action thriller movie. Usually you expect a few characters fighting in a tight space while using all the weapons at their disposal, but because it's Captain America, it can't feel that way. Establishing that Captain America is stronger than normal humans puts in place that he's not a force to be reckoned with. So they jam-packed the entire elevator with lots of enemies.
Another component that we wanted to bring to the character was this modern component of, how do you deal with enemy combatants in closed spaces, combinations of fighting styles.
But what really makes that scene special isn't just that he wins, it's how the environment detects how he has to win. The space is small. The enemies can't surround him in this wide cinematic pose, so they press into him, they grab, restrict, and try to hold him. The fight becomes messy, physical, and almost very desperate. And this idea of location shaping action doesn't end in the elevator scene. The car chase scene is one of the best action sequences in The Winter Soldier. When it comes to car chasing scenes in film, it's always a recurring trope in action-heavy films, which means it can sometimes feel overdone. But somehow, they made it work. Using practical effects and real-life locations to sell the shot, it really brought a kind of life and realism to it, which for an audience means high tension.
Car chase is inspired by Ronin, which we still think is one of the great car chase movies of all time. So we kept showing that clip to our crew and our stunt coordinators and our, camera department saying, how do we achieve this level of intensity?
Later in The Winter Soldier, the highway fight scene completely flips the formula as well. Suddenly there's room, there are cars, there are overpasses, blind spot. Instead of claustrophobia, we get exposure. The openness allows threats to come from anywhere, which is exactly how the Winter Soldier is introduced, sudden, efficient, and lethal. The setting in a sense gives him this kind of myth. It shows his lack of hesitation and his high level of killing efficiency, with no regard for civilian life or collateral damage. And when you move to Captain America Civil War and the airport battle, it might be one of the clearest examples of controlled geography in blockbuster filmmaking. The space is massive, yet the film constantly reorients the audience. You know where Iron Man is in relation to Cap, you know where Spider-Man lands, you know who is chasing who. Even with giant characters, flying characters, and shrinking characters, it never becomes overwhelming. And the same precision shows up again in the final fight between Cap, Bucky, and Tony.
He's my friend. So was I.
A closed facility with no civilians and no sort of distraction, the characters get to settle their differences through fist fight without outside interference, except in the sense interfere with each other, I guess. So whether the space is tight, sparse, wide, public, or isolated, the Russos always use location to control tension, readability, and in a sense emotional weight. The place where they fight tells the fighters what kind of battle this will be. But of course, a well-designed arena is only potential energy. To actually make it hit, to actually make fans feel something in this fight, the bodies inside it have to do the work. And that's where performance and practicality comes in. Action scenes from Civil War and The Winter Soldier are pretty held high because of the dedication put into them. The actors sold themselves into the roles, training and preparing themselves in order to make these scenes work. From months of training even to the height of straining their body to get the elevator scene to be as epic as it was. And we have superstars. And we have Sebastian Stan also taking it a step further by committing himself to 5 months of physical training, studying about the Cold War constantly, and I mean every single day, training that incredible knife trick that later contributed to one of the best fight sequences in The Winter Soldier.
My friends were making fun of me. I was just kind of like walking around the house for a while, just sort of flipping this plastic knife. I mean, I was like driving in intersections and just flipping it in the car.
Because Captain America in Winter Soldier and Civil War was a more evolved version from his previous entry being Captain America the First Avenger, it meant they had to make the action and fights hit harder, which meant Chris Evans himself was put into grueling training to bring that to life. And as the actors trained for their roles, the stunt team and stunt coordinators had their work cut out for them as well, having to train these actors in real martial arts to properly deliver. When you also consider the fact that The Winter Soldier especially was inspired by The Raid, a movie where a lot of people do a lot of weird things with their hands. I just made that weird. A movie where a lot of people fight with their hands. I think that's better. I think it becomes self-explanatory why the fight felt so good.
Believe it or not, The Raid, we saw that movie 6 months before we started working on this. And the action was so trackable in that film. It was elegantly done and so, you know.
The grounded feel the Captain America films wanted to achieve meant practicality was important. Even if CGI was used to finish up some scenes, there were still highly practical stunts involved. Real car crashes, sets built to fit, and even the camera crew having to put themselves in the action to sell certain shots. What's interesting is that when you pull all of this together, from the psychology of Captain America as a character, to the world he brings with him, to the philosophy of action according to the Russo brothers, the locations used to enhance this action, and the dedication from the actors and the entire crew, you really start to understand why these Captain America films are not just good films, but extremely enjoyable and satisfying films to watch. With this, they turned the somewhat Boy Scouty character with a simple black and white worldview into one of the most grounded and morally strong characters, which further highlight one of the key components that makes this action scene so good and enjoyable: the story.
We want these fights to be big character moments. We don't want there to be fighting just for the hell of fighting. There's a lot of story coming into these fights.
Honestly, no action scene in a film can truly work without a good story. Whether the action carries or not, it's the story that makes every fight feel earned. The Winter Soldier and Civil War are stated to be two of the greatest films in the MCU for that reason. Not only do these films completely deconstruct the idea of Captain America that audiences had of him, but they also provide some of the most gut-wrenching emotional scenes and personal stakes that just seal the deal. So when you top all of that with action that uses these characters at their best, as they should be, you're giving the audience a full course meal, a reason to always come back, and a memory to have for the rest of their lives. You know, I could go all day talking about this, but I don't think you'd like to listen to me for that long, so I'll end the video here.
Part of our creative process has always been, finding like incongruous elements to put together. There was just something irresistible about taking a cinematic style that's associated with realism and naturalism, shooting an unreal superhero world with that style.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video in any way or took anything from it, please feel free to drop a like or maybe subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads or just to help grow the channel. But until next time, I'm out.